You're here at Datadog's webinar, presenting our cloud security platform. The title is Real-Time Threat Detection and Configuration Audit. So hopefully this is a meeting you planned on dialing into. But we appreciate you coming today, and we're really looking forward to sharing this with you. My name is Jason. I'm an engineer at Datadog based in San Francisco. And prior to coming to work for Datadog, I was a Datadog customer and user myself. And I've been working with our customers to talk about our security features, and so we're really excited to present the platform as part of today's webinar. We plan to give a brief overview of the type of problems we're working with our customers to solve, and then spend time with the demo inside the product so that you can see what we're working on and how customers might be using this to address their security challenges today. Before we get started, a couple logistical items that I think people may be asking in chat as well. This webinar will be recorded, or it's being recorded currently. The other thing to note is that we will leave time for questions at the end. Please do leverage the Q&A feature of this Zoom webinar to go ahead and ask questions. And we'll be able to address those either in the Q&A chat or verbally throughout the webinar, and especially at the end. So we look forward to hearing what you have to say about this as we get underway. I think those are all the logistical items I had to cover, and I've given a quick check of my notes to make sure. So let's get underway. I'd like to start first by giving a brief overview of the Datadog product, just so we're all starting from the same page or we're familiar with the sort of the background. Datadog is a modern platform for observability, monitoring, and security. Customers use Datadog throughout their infrastructure and their applications to monitor, to track end user performance, to improve outcomes for folks who leverage their own software stacks, as well as to improve outcomes like reliability and ease of use for their own employees, their own engineers. We've been around for quite some time, and hopefully many of you on the call today have had the opportunity at least to try out, if not to use already, some of Datadog's earlier product areas. We'll call them the ancestors of security, which we're here to talk about today. Datadog's been around since 2010, and we've built up a really strong foundation of customers who've used us well for challenges and addressing problems in spaces like infrastructure monitoring, log collection, application performance monitoring, network performance, so on and so forth. As you see on screen, although we've worked hard to make Datadog simple to deploy and precise in terms of the information available, sort of the surface area of challenges we work with our customers to address is growing over time. As we work with our customers, our friends, and our prospects, we're always hearing about new challenges that they'd like to solve or tackle with Datadog. And in particular, you'll notice in the right-hand section of this graph, in 2021, a particular set of challenges has arisen around security, which we've heard from and been working with our customers and frankly, the industry. And it's those problems which we're here to talk about today, how Datadog addresses them and how we can show it to you in the product as an example of using it going forward. So let's talk about some of these modern security challenges that folks are facing. We hear this from customers. You probably are hearing this from your own employees and your own colleagues. And we're here presenting this webinar because we believe this is a trend. It's not really like an isolated outcome. The core tenet, or one of the core things that's brought us to this area, is the fact that security is a concept or a responsibility that's spreading among engineers and among folks within a company. Gone are the days in the past, or at least in my past, where a SOC or a security team might literally be enclosed in like a glass-walled room or separated entirely, and they would just sort of exist on the side and not really interface much with the rest of the business. Nowadays, we find, and we hear from our customers, that the responsibility of security involves more than just a traditional SecOps team, represented here in the center. It includes governance, risk, and compliance on the right-hand side, and it's definitely spreading towards developers, ops engineers, deployment engineers, and SREs. Frankly, the response we see is that security is a shared problem and sort of a shared set of challenges. And there's a couple of those challenges in particular that are sort of moving among employees, which we hope to address with the tools that Datadog is bringing to availability. So we'll cover a couple of these problems just to make sure we're all on the same basis. Maybe these are the most common concerns that we hear from our product and engineering teams as we talk to customers. Frankly, the first problem is one of reduced visibility. You can't monitor what you can't see. And as everyone's tech stack sort of expands in complexity and in breadth, it's easy to lose track of what it is at the bare level we run and we maintain, whether it might be distributed among a cloud service provider, serverless, Kubernetes-based, on-prem, split deployment. There's a lot of buzzwords we hear here, but the core goal for Datadog overall, as well as for Datadog security products, is to make sure at a minimum we have this visibility, what it is that belongs to us and our responsibility within these four walls, so to speak. On top of visibility is detection. This has been core to Datadog even before we entered security-specific products as well. It's well and good to have visibility into our infrastructure, for instance, or our logs, but we also need to be able to detect anomalies, patterns, errors, and raise those for concerns. That same situation applies to security. We want to be able to detect items that demand our attention. And ideally, detection or the ability to monitor and raise alerts shouldn't have to be a function of the number of engineers in your SOC or the number of tools you have, or frankly, the number of dollars spent, right? We want detection to be something that's efficient, near constant time in terms of its complexity. And so we aim to provide tools that sort of improve or force multiply, so to speak, the ability to do this detection promptly and over a wide basis. The third challenge is investigation. Detection raises alerts or areas that demand further concern, but investigation helps us classify severity, what remediation options should be taken, to what degree a concern might impact our end users or our own internal employees. And it helps us, in essence, flesh out the entire picture of an attack. Traditionally, we've had a lot of customers have this problem where investigation was sort of the domain of someone who is removed from the day-to-day. A security incident might be detected, and then it would, in essence, be removed to a far-off team to do that investigation in a vacuum. Really, the investigation yields results which are important to the entire business and which might lead to remediation steps or classifications. And so we hear a lot about customers, not only the desire to want to be able to do investigation, but to sort of share or democratize, if you would, the results of that investigation among all stakeholders involved. And the last concern we talk about here in the security space has to do with prevention. Ideally, we're using Datadog or any set of security tools to catch issues as they arise. But the best way, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And we want to be able to also address issues when they're small or when they're at low severity, before they become game-breaking issues, before they impact our end users, before their sphere of influence spreads to other systems or dependencies. And so this is sort of the last part of any sort of security concern that we hear from our customers and a common demand. We want to be able to use Datadog or any tool in a fashion that demands or that allows us to spend less time in Datadog over time. We do some of these prevention mechanisms proactively so that we can focus on our day-to-day, building good products, not addressing core security concerns, not sort of retreading the same paths over time. So this is meant to be an overview. I think if you talk to folks in the security space, they'll certainly say they have other concerns as well, and some of them become more specific or more targeted. But broadly speaking, these are common trends we hear when we talk to our customers, and hopefully some of these trends or some of these points are resonating within your own mind as well. Security is a tricky problem to address. And as environments become more complex and sort of the degree of spread increases, people are calling out for a tool that allows us to see all this information in one place, to sort of centralize security information along with observability so that we can understand and triage and remediate issues without having to go from tool to tool, team to team, sort of passing information back and forth in those old workflows that we're all familiar with or that we've been doing in the past. So this is where Datadog thinks we can help. We've been working for quite some time with customers and in our own product and engineering teams to bring to you Datadog's cloud security platform. And this will be the focus of the demo, which we're going to talk about today, in which we reproduce some security investigations and attack vector diagnosis mechanisms you have at your fingertips with what Datadog's allowing you to use. Broadly speaking, Datadog's cloud security platform is built on the same observability platform, which our customers know and love and have used well over the past several years. As I mentioned before, Datadog already has a very robust and well-used set of features within infrastructure monitoring, log collection, and application performance monitoring or code instrumentation. And each of the security features we're going to talk about today are built on those existing Datadog observability features. They're extensions of those pieces of functionality. And so you can see this in sort of our full stack security model in the left. Just as we do existing infrastructure monitoring, we want to move this on to continuous configuration. Just as we have the presence of Datadog's lightweight agent, we want to leverage those functionality for cloud workload security. And as Datadog has already processed logs well for so many other use cases, we want to extend that functionality to our Cloud SIM tool and allow you to diagnose security concerns as they come in through log analysis and detection via rules we offer. So this is our cloud security platform that we want to talk about overall. We'll leave this up maybe for 15 more seconds for you to digest and sort of take a look at what's going on here. But I think what we always find helpful when we talk to customers or when we look at our own security is to show a demo of how this might be used in the Datadog product. And so as we move on from here, we'll spend the second part of this webinar going through the Datadog product, demonstrating each of the components of our cloud security platform and showing you what this might look like as you implement this yourself in Datadog, alongside existing monitoring or Datadog tools you might have today. So we'll take a look at Datadog now. And we'll move away from our slides for a little bit. The way we like to demo our security platform is sort of the same as how we demo other Datadog tools. We want to talk about real world scenarios and how people might do this in their day-to-day. And to that end, we'll start in Slack. I think one of the concepts of Datadog overall, and indeed for the security platform specifically, is that we want to bring this information to workflows that your team uses day to day. There's broadly speaking, quite a difficult path to implement a tool that causes everyone to have to change the way they work. And so in this example, you'll see here that Datadog surfacing security alerts in line with the Slack channel that our team might be using day to day to track security incidents as they arise. Each of these alerts can be inspected in Datadog, and you can look at more information. And that's where our view into today's Cloud SIM functionality will sort of originate. Datadog's core functionality that we talk about first allows us to inspect logs as they're ingested from a range of sources and alert users for security issues that might have arisen based off the contents of those logs and existing rule sets that Datadog provides. Here's an example of one we're looking at to get more specific and talk about an actual issue. In this case, Datadog's alerting us that AWS S3 buckets have been enumerated, which is a security incident which demands our concern. Now we'll pause here for a second, I guess, before we get more specific. I mentioned earlier that security is a responsibility that's spreading to everyone. The fact that it's spreading to everyone, though, usually means that it's another responsibility on top of our day jobs. It's another sort of thing we have to learn or another core competency we need to build. And frankly, it's a little bit difficult, right? It's hard for everyone to become a specialist in security right away, just as it's hard for everyone to become a specialist in cloud or AWS right away. It takes time to move to the cloud, it takes time to re-architect applications and to sort of develop those skills or competencies. To that end, it was important to Datadog when we designed these alerts for security events to provide contextual messages which indicate to you what's gone wrong, what the impact might be, and how you might triage or remediate this response in the first case. This is designed to essentially speed up time to resolution. If you put yourself in these shoes, and if you say that you're an engineer who's received this alert, we want to give you clues on where to start to say AWS S3 buckets are enumerated, sure, but let's also talk to you about what that means, how it might have arisen, and what next steps you might want to take to validate or remediate this issue going forward. And so you'll find this context provided to you in this message down here, out of the box, just like you would for any security signal that Datadog provides for you. Of course, beyond the context, there's also more specific information and metadata that we can use to conduct our investigation. If you remember, investigation being one of those key concerns that we talked about earlier. And in this example, Datadog Cloud SIM allows you to look at sample log events that were responsible for triggering this rule in the first place. We can look at this event here, as well as its associated metadata, and you can have all this information in one place. This is part of Datadog's ability to correlate this information easily. In the past, to sort of go from a security concern to an associated log, you might have to sort of move between two systems. You'd have to SSH into a host and grep a log file and write some regex and then convert UTC timestamps in your head and hope you get everything right. And Datadog's idea here is to make things easier and more precise by automatically correlating you and presenting the relevant samples so that you can take this investigation and go further. In this example, just like other cases where you see Datadog logs, we're presenting you this information and metadata, which can be equally important as the data itself. Each of these attributes, if you desired, could be used to conduct a further investigation. So you could pivot to other information that might have similar values. For instance, you might say, show me other logs or issues which have the same account ID or access key ID. Similarly, as a brief preview, although not the focus of today's conversation, we can move from this back into Datadog's core products. We can look at infrastructure monitoring from the host that this event originated from in the first place. Or you could, if you wanted to, use Datadog's Log Explorer to conduct analytics and say, for instance, what's the incidence or the frequency of this type of error over time? And are there any trends I can notice broken down by tag, such as availability zone, cloud provider, so on and so forth. In today's case, though, we actually want to move from here to talk about other components of our security platform. We've started here in our Cloud SIEM to look at security concerns that have arisen from logging information. But you'll notice that as part of Datadog's goal to be a platform or sort of a single point where you can look at correlated security information, we also want to present to you related issues, other security signals, which might be related to the security signal we originated with in the first place, and from which we could further our investigation into related concerns, parent-child dependencies, so on and so forth. So here's a list of related issues that Datadog is presenting me having to do with this original landing point. And you'll see there's quite a few of them here that we can look at in more detail. In order to talk next about Datadog's cloud workload security, we're going to focus on this bottom related signal, web app process spawn shell utility. To inspect this, we can look at another security signal here. And just as before, we're looking at information that Datadog provides out of the box. It has severity, it has a timestamp, it has a message that provides context and suggested remediation steps. And so we're looking to provide sort of a framework for common information you can expect to see from a security signal, regardless of how it might have been generated in the first place. In this case, the method of generation is a little bit different, and that's why this is part of our cloud workload security pillar of our security platform, rather than Cloud SIEM. The previous signal we saw was generated or analyzed from log data. Cloud workload security takes advantage of Datadog's single lightweight agent to analyze and provide you host or kernel level information as to what might be going on. In this case, the presence of a new subprocess running that demands some type of security concern. If you're already using Datadog today for infrastructure, logs, or APM, you're familiar with the Datadog agent. We provide a single agent for all of our products, and that includes security as well. Implementing cloud workload security and getting insights like what we see on page leverages that same agent, and it doesn't require like a separate agent or a separate deployment mechanism. It's Datadog's goal to bundle this all together so that the administration overhead of rolling all this out is low. As we inspect our cloud workload security event, we can look again at more information. Concept in security is that the metadata is the data itself. And so in addition to looking at core information about this web app process that was spawned, we can look at more information about what exactly the Datadog agent is providing us with respect to this cloud workload security signal. In this case, for instance, a path to the executable, a process ID, command line environment, so on and so forth. Again, information that we're using the Datadog agent and under the covers eBPF as a leverage technology to provide you a further degree of security insight in addition to the existing logs we looked at before, but allowing you to view both of those in the same platform, not having to use a separate tool or a separate query mechanism or a separate rollout. And so this is the second part of our security platform that we want to talk about, cloud workload security, leveraging the Datadog agent to provide you information on the host or the kernel, which might be generating security concerns in the first place. Again, a concept that's borrowed or used everywhere in our security platform is the ability to look at these related issues. Just as previously we were looking at related issues from a log detection event, we can also look at related issues from a cloud workload security or an agent detection event. In this case, again, another set of related issues where we could further our investigation and see how one security concern might be related to or caused by another. We're going to use this mechanism to talk about the third pillar of our cloud security platform, which is application security. And in order to do that, I'll call your attention specifically to this related rule, SSRF attempts on routes executing network queries. Here we can look at a security signal that's driven by Datadog's application security product. As the third pillar of our cloud security platform overall, this also leverages an existing part of Datadog that customers have been using and leveraging for quite some time. In this case, application security leverages Datadog's APM or distributed tracing libraries to get code level insights. And so this is sort of the third part of our picture. We started with Cloud SIM, where we were analyzing logs. Then we just looked at cloud workload security, which borrowed the Datadog agent's infrastructure capabilities. And now with application security, we're borrowing Datadog's tracing libraries and its code level instrumentation to derive further insight into security concerns that might address our applications as they're running in production. And this is sort of, again, following that chain of investigation. We do care about infrastructure and we do care about anomalies, but we also want to know to what extent these security concerns are affecting our code running in production. And this is the third part of the puzzle or the platform that application security aims to provide. In this example, application security provides details on the attack vector that's created over time, as well as metadata broken down. For example, attackers by IP address, so that you can look and analyze geographic trends were they to arise in this case. Since application security is built off of Datadog APM, there's also a mechanism here to easily move back and forth between this security signal and the underlying distributed traces which Datadog is providing to you in the first place. As we deploy code that's microservice oriented, it involves many different components, third-party cloud providers, APIs. You'd eventually look to use a Datadog distributed trace to look at things like timing, stack trace dependencies, help us sort of identify root cause. Where in my code monolith or where in my overarching architecture can we sort of originate this this problem from? And what other components are more of sort of innocent bystanders or folks who are suffering from the security concern rather than causing it in the first place? I'll take a brief aside here to mention one thing about using our security platform overall. We started at the beginning talking about Slack, and I mentioned that it's one of our goals everywhere in Datadog to integrate this information into workflows you use day to day. So part of that is surfacing this information in Slack or Microsoft Teams or whatever sort of notification flows you have day to day. But Datadog also offers functionality to declare incidents and track sort of severity, resolution, next steps, as well as integration with any existing incident or triage providers you may be using today. So this is a common example of how you might use this information in addition to or alongside Datadog's UI. You might envision using this, for example, with PagerDuty to reach out to an on-call, to nominate an incident commander, and then to track what steps we've taken to address this issue going forward. Cool. So we've talked about 3 pillars of Datadog's cloud security platform so far. We've talked about Cloud SIM for logs. We've talked about cloud workload security, leveraging our agent. And we've just wrapped up application security, which leverages Datadog's tracing libraries. We'll finish here by talking about the 4th pillar, which is cloud posture management. If we talk about our scenario we were just thinking of, we've detected a set of misconfigurations that have led to this problem in the first place. This host is running an unexpected web app, this host is running an unexpected process. It's causing some set of security concerns. Perhaps we've lost sensitive data. Perhaps we've opened ourselves up to exposure. It's only natural to want to go from here and check our configuration posture overall in order to see both the surface area of this vulnerability, as well as the amount of time it's been available. See if we can sort of detect which change introduced this problem. This leads us to the last pillar of Datadog security platform for now that we're going to talk about today, which is cloud security posture management. The use case for this might be, for instance, to say, I'm worried that this host in particular, this rule that we're looking at on screen, has this potential web shell running. and I'd like to inspect other hosts within the same security group to see how far this potential exposure has spread. In this case, Datadog makes available tags on this security rule that allow us to pivot back and forth. And these are the same tags that are present everywhere in Datadog for folks who are familiar with using us today. You can use these to go back and forth among infrastructure, logs, traces, RUM, every other part of the Datadog platform. In this case, if I borrow that tag, we can now look at our security posture management findings for this security group overall. And it's indicating to us in this case that we've got a misconfiguration in terms of how the security group is oriented overall, as it stands in this case in AWS. Cloud security posture management is designed to be, sort of our backup or our additional overseer, if you will. It's quite easy as we move to more complex architectures, as we migrate applications to the cloud, to make mistakes or to leave behind configurations in a state that's not considered best practice or it's not considered the most secure. Cloud security posture management leverages a set of built-in rules to Datadog that's constantly scanning your existing configuration mechanisms and nominating to you findings that would demand a change in configuration. In this case, our cloud security posture management finding is alerting us to the fact that inbound HTTP access is not restricted on the security group, as it should be in terms of best practice. There's information here on how these findings were calculated. And then there's even remediation steps so that you can see where this information, what steps you might take to sort of address this finding going forward. This is just one specific finding for cloud security posture management. What we find for customers that they more often use our wide range views as sort of an overarching monitoring and as a starting off point for where they should address the most common or the most pressing problems going forward. When you leverage Datadog security posture management, you'll be provided with a bunch of pre-built dashboards which compare your configuration across cloud providers to existing and established compliance frameworks. And so you see some examples of these down here. We're talking CIS, PCI, SOC 2, HIPAA, so on and so forth. Datadog's providing you this report and allowing you to drill down into each of these findings, particularly when they're red or failed, so that you know what remediation steps you have to take. And again, this is a use case we're trying to solve for sort of decreased friction. I mentioned I used to be a Datadog customer before I came to work here. And we didn't, at that point in time, these security tools didn't exist. And so we did our security compliance audits the same way that I think many of you did. A third-party auditor came in, they generated this really big spreadsheet. The spreadsheet was shared with all these engineering teams via like a SharePoint group. And then we'd have to go in and sort of edit this one by one, look at the description, try and figure out what it meant, copy items back and forth, lose edits. It's a lot of overhead, and it's a lot of, in many cases, it involves like an external auditor. And so the vision here is to make this process lower friction. Establishing compliance is going to continue to be important for basically everyone, but we want that process to be simpler and more integrated into how people, developers and ops folks are working day to day. And to that end, this posture management dashboard is something that customers are using in order to sort of maintain their continuous compliance in a way that's less painful and more sort of tied into the day-to-day that they're already seeing with other parts of Datadog's platform. The last thing I'll sort of talk about here is to say, you may be wondering, for cloud security posture management, or broadly speaking, for all of the security rules findings we showed today, what rules are causing this calculation or this sort of detection of a concern in the first place? And so we'll wrap up by talking about what information Datadog provides to you out of the box in terms of our detection rules. As you leverage Datadog's products, we provide to you a library of rules across each of the pillars of our cloud security platform, a rule set that's always increasing over time. But we aim here to provide or match what are commonly thought of as best practices or industry standards for security and compliance. In many cases, these definitions are not solely our own. You'll find, for example, that security findings are inherited from places like the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and compliance findings, as we saw before, are inherited from compliance benchmarks as defined by frameworks like CIS or HIPAA. Our rule set is always expanding. We've got a team in Datadog that's working to sort of expand and provide new rules because we all know that the security landscape is shifting and presenting new threats to us over time. But we'll also point out here that Datadog allows you the ability to define your own rules as well. You may want to detect security threats which are specific perhaps to your application composition or to a novel infrastructure footprint that you may have. And Datadog does allow you to define your own rules in a way that doesn't require a complex query language or certainly any sort of like code level instrumentation. And so we'll find again from customers, oftentimes supplementing our own existing and growing out of the box rule set with a few custom rules specific to their own customer specific concerns as well. So this is an overview of Datadog's cloud security platform. We've talked about these 4 different areas. Maybe I'll sort of step back here to summarize what it is we've shown in this quick demo. In our cloud security platform, we aim to provide to you 4 pillars which borrow from existing functionality, which Datadog's already been using in the observability space. Our Cloud SIEM leverages threat detection by analyzing logs. Cloud security posture management and cloud workload security ensure that your hosts and cloud infrastructure is configured in a compliant manner and that there are no sensitive host or kernel level issues. And it does this by leveraging the same lightweight open source Datadog agent, which is responsible for our core infrastructure monitoring product. At the bottom, application security provides instrumentation, security through instrumentation, essentially identifying issues that would arise at the code base level for your workloads running in production and giving you additional context that you might expect on top of what would come through leveraging Datadog's tracing libraries. It's our aim to continue to sort of unify all these security products together. But I think, you've heard us talk about sort of having this all as a platform or as a single point of view. The concept and one of the things we aim to show in the demo is that as you leverage one or multiple of these pieces in conjunction with one or multiple of Datadog's existing products, you're doing this on the basis of a set of shared Datadog functionality that extends to everything we do. The ability to set up and configure easily, the ability to use tags to correlate and move from dimension to dimension, and the ability to precisely query for information you need without having to do things like a specialized query language or data analysis of your own. So that's an overview of the product of the security platform that we offer today. As you've been watching my demo, for those of you who are not already leveraging or trying out Datadog security products today, something that might be in mind is how to get started and how to try this out yourself. And you absolutely should. I think we mentioned in all of these webinars that, you're listening to us talk about it today and hopefully you like what you see, but there's no substitute for actually looking at this in your own environment and validating that it's giving you useful information and that it's presenting findings that in this case would improve your security workflows and postures overall. The good news is you can get started on this yourself with relatively little overhead. Again, like everything we do in Datadog, we want this to be lightweight to set up. You can follow setup steps as described here. Broadly speaking, leveraging this functionality involves installing a Datadog agent if you don't already have it present, configuring Datadog's built-in integrations with third-party cloud service providers, and then ingesting logs so that we can analyze and extract security findings from that information. You'll find documentation on how to walk you through all of these steps inside the Datadog product itself in the security tab on the left, as well as on our documentation site overall. And just like everything else in Datadog, you'll also find a number of Datadog folks on our side eager to work with you to get this set up yourself. If you already use Datadog, you can get started at this URL. And if you're not a Datadog user today and you're interested in trying us out, or this is the first time you've heard of Datadog, first of all, we're flattered and excited to have you here. We'd urge you to sign up for a trial at that URL, where you can leverage all of our security products and test out each of these functionality yourself in order to compare it to what you have today or what some of your most common problems are. As a bit of an aside, the trial is not limited to security. So if you were to spin up a new trial and evaluate Datadog security products, you could and should also take that opportunity to evaluate Datadog's existing pillars we talked about: infrastructure monitoring, application performance monitoring, and logs. Many of our happiest customers use those products in conjunction. And so we find that as more and more pieces are available in Datadog, the depth and specificity of our findings only increases. The last thing I'll say is to make a quick announcement, which is actually quite fortuitous given today's timing. The application security product we mentioned before, if you had seen it on the previous slide, had a beta tag affixed to it. It has been in a private or a limited beta to this point. But we're taking this webinar to announce, and it'll be on our website tomorrow, that the application security product will enter public beta tomorrow, February 3rd. For the recording, this webinar is being presented on February 2nd. And so if you're interested in trying this out yourself, you'll also find information on how to enable join the public beta and take advantage of this application security functionality starting tomorrow. So we're at least equally excited about that. And we do hope you leverage this as well, so that you can take advantage in this case of all 4 of those pillars of our cloud security platform that we mentioned before. So that brings to an end the parts that we wanted to make sure we showed you today. In summary, we're really excited about our cloud security products. Of course, we're going to be working on continuing to improve them over time. But hopefully the demo and the concerns we talked about before resonate with you as they have with so many of our customers before. And we do hope you'll give us a try. You'll evaluate this in your own environments and give us feedback on how we're addressing the security concerns as they relate to your organizations. So with that, I'll take a brief pause. I'll get a sip of water, and we've got some open time here at the close of this webinar to address Q&A. As I mentioned at the start, we can leverage the Q&A feature of the Zoom webinar, which you'll find next to the standard chat window. You can ask questions there, and we'll get to them as promptly as we can. We do have one thing in chat that we talked about from the Datadog side. If you liked what you saw today so much that you'd like to see even more security and talk to even more engineers and product folks from the Datadog side, we do have a link to our Datadog Security Demo Day, which is tomorrow, coinciding with the public beta availability of AppSec, application security. So there's a link in the chat here. If you'd like to, again, meet more of our engineering team, see a couple more demos with even more specificity, we would encourage you to check out that event. I believe we're trying to coordinate it globally, so folks will be dialing in from a whole bunch of time zones altogether. And it does sound like it's building quite the buzz from our side. Okay. We've got a couple questions coming in through Q&A, so I'll see if I can answer a couple of these. There's a question about the installation of Datadog security agent software. How does it support Linux? So to be clear, leveraging the Datadog agent to do cloud workload security or cloud security posture management involves installing the existing Datadog agent, or I guess to rephrase this a different way, Datadog only offers one agent, and it does everything we offer from an agent perspective. You'll find if you go to your Datadog account, instructions on installing the agent across each of a variety of platforms that we support. This includes Linux and various distributions. And so these instructions include or encompass leveraging the security functionality that I talked about that's agent appropriate. And so you wouldn't have to do anything additional. You would follow these installation instructions that we provide for you across a range of platforms. Or if you have the Datadog agent in place already today, security does not demand a redeployment or an addition of a new agent. Cool. I'm scanning for other questions we have here. Feel free to toss them in Q&A. We're trying to get to a representative sample of the ones that are available to us. There's a question just generally speaking about documentation, both for the Datadog agent and overall. I guess this is a generic link for folks who, in addition to the ones that are provided on the slide, but we would encourage you to go to our documentation site overall, and you'll find a range of specific walkthroughs across each of our sort of product or platform areas. So for example, if you're looking for commands to use to execute against our Datadog agent, perhaps to get diagnostic information, you could find those under the agent subheading. So I'll say at a broad level, for folks who are implementing Datadog themselves as they speak, or you're gonna go do this right after this because you liked what you saw, Do consult the doc site. We work quite hard on it. And then do be aware that you can reach out to Datadog for more support or to talk about specific scenarios as might be useful in your case. And then I think we've got, oops, I just closed the window. I think we've got one last question here about, in essence, feeding information from Datadog to other systems or from other systems into Datadog. I guess the gist of this question is oftentimes everyone dreams of having only one tool, let's say for all of security or for all of observability. But to be realistic, we're not there yet, right? And there are oftentimes other pieces in play. An example in the security space might be endpoint protection, right? Or monitoring of employees' laptops or mobile phones. Datadog does aim to be a place where you can consolidate this information together. So for example, we offer mechanisms for customers to forward logs from an endpoint management system into Datadog's log UI in case you wanted to do log queries altogether. We also offer the ability to export or send notifications or webhooks from Datadog to other locations. An example of that was actually what we saw in the incident case. We can declare an incident in Datadog and then send related information to PagerDuty so that PagerDuty has context. That same pattern does apply to Cloud SIEM or security-related scenarios. We do offer mechanisms to send information in both directions, from a declared Datadog security finding to another platform, or to import information from another platform and use that to enrich a security finding. So in broad strokes, to answer this question, both degrees of integration are well supported. Maybe in specific strokes, your Datadog team would be happy to work with you and sort of prove that out with you. Cool. I'm scrolling through our Q&A sessions have slowed down a little bit. I definitely don't want to cut anyone off early, so we'll give ourselves a few minutes to track in any stragglers or taper in questions. Otherwise, I will leave this slide up. I will reiterate, if you're interested in more security information, there's a link in chat to our security demo day, which will be held tomorrow, February 3rd. February 3rd is also the public beta availability date of our application security product. So I would imagine there would be some even further application security goodies in that security demo day. But other than that, I think our questions have sort of dried up here. And so someone was typing. Okay, nope, not a question. And so I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. You can always reach out to Datadog through our website in case you need help getting in touch with your account team or your Datadog representative specifically, in case you'd like to evaluate some of these scenarios or some of these security products as they relate to your company and your use case specifically. But broadly speaking, we do appreciate you coming to talk about this. We hope you're at least as excited about it as we are. And we do look forward to getting to work with you in terms of trying out the security products, validating our hypotheses, hopefully, helping you solve a lot of your own security related problems or heartburn in your own environments. So I'll leave you with that. I hope everyone on the call has an excellent rest of your Wednesday, wherever you are time zone wise. We appreciate you joining in. And thanks for hearing about Datadog.